welcome to Shifting Religious Concepts. We are SRC. We're pleased to be here with you again today for a novel look at the Bible, what it means for all of us. My name's Mark Thomas. I'm moderating today's show, and along with our SRC panel, we will continue the series entitled Revelation Revealed. Just a few things for the audience before I introduce our panel. Please keep your microphones on mute during the program. We just need this just to keep down on the background noise. But we do want you, as the audience that is, to participate in the show if you like to, and you could raise your hand through the Zoom feature, and then we will unmute your mic, or you can unmute your mic, and we'll try to answer your questions as we go. Our panel today, as always, are Anala D., Archie Sanders, and Dr. Kedar Griffo. They bring a broad perspective to our mission of revealing the hidden knowledge of the Bible. Anala and Archie are both ordained ministers. Anala has written 2 books and is working on her 3rd, and is also a noted inspirational speaker. Archie has pastored for over 20 years in Virginia, and is an authority on the Bible and how it came to its present form. And then Dr. Griffo has a very extensive resume. He's written numerous books and is known for his expertise on the Bible and how it relates to our bodies and the cosmos. So let's just get right into it. We'll get to the takeaways. Anala, we're going to, of course, we're talking about Revelation, which is often thought of as a ominous and dark, even threatening last book of the Bible. SRC has a different idea about that. Why don't you start us off with the takeaways, please?
Absolutely, no problem. Just let me say good morning to everyone who's on the broadcast today. We welcome you and so happy that you are here. Our takeaways: where and how Revelation came about. We've talked about that. We've talked about the role of Paul as it relates to Revelation. We talked about the real purpose of the Bible called Revelation. The book and the body and the book of Revelation, how they correspond together. We've talked about that. What and who is the light of the world? What is the significance of Revelation in your everyday life? We are still unpacking this information. So we want you to stay tuned and contact your friends and everyone and ask them to join in as well.
Okay. We're on our 4th episode of this series. It seems like we just got started. I think we have just got started, actually. But just to briefly summarize last week's show, we turned to Dr. Griffo to finish up on chapter 2 of the Revelation. And starting with the Church of Thyatira in verse 18, he went on to explain the symbolism and so reveal the hidden knowledge in these verses that SRC so often speaks of. Brother Griff explained the history of Jezebel and how she represents man's lower nature, how Jezebel in that role seduced the people of Thyatira to worship false gods. The panel went on to relate how this is all allegorical in nature, meaning the ancient storytellers used these characters such as Jezebel to convey or represent hidden knowledge. Also during the show, Anala shared a great screenshot of how the 7 chakra relate to our bodies and spirits. We'll probably be seeing more of that today. And Archie stressed how these verses are much like an initiation. He talked about gaining control of your lower nature to access your higher consciousness or chakra. So this is just a very small sampling of the show from last week. We really strongly encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and view the whole video, even if you saw the show, because you will find a lot more interesting knowledge there, even if you watch the show live. So now we're going to move on to chapter 3 in the book of Revelation. We've asked Brother Archie to break this chapter down in detail with the rest of SRC panel ready to contribute. So a reminder once again, don't forget, we encourage the audience to comment or ask questions if you're so inclined. So just raise your hand. Pastor Archie, there is much thought-provoking symbolism in this chapter 3. Much like in chapter 2, the speaker introduces himself to the angel of each church in the ancient cities of Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. The chapter starts off in the first verse by proclaiming, quote now from the first verse, "These things saith he that hath the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know thy works." Isn't the speaker plainly saying in this first verse that I am an enlightened being living in all the 7 levels of consciousness. So now listen to me, Archie.
Yes, good morning, everyone. As I stated before, I think we have to look at this as the mind, the all powerful, the mind itself, in the highest chakra that you can get to, and is looking out and saying these words I'm saying. But let's remember now we're talking about our body, us, our minds, the way we think and the way we control ourselves. So you got to understand that what Apollonius, I've been calling them Apollonius, but I couldn't find out. Apollo it was the sun, with the sun god, and Apollonius is what is the person that uh, actually wrote this book, and it was taken and then rewrote again, and added things were added, interpolated, and all this here. But yeah, it's the mind speaking to us, telling us what it is that uh, it knows, and you'll get ready to see something here in chapter 3 that is very important. And I thought about it, and I thought about it. I want the audience to be able to relate to what we're saying right here, right now. Our personality, us, what Apollonius was trying to get people to understand about the initiation into this great secret was how we were to control ourselves, which the church fathers did not want the masses to know. So I don't want to rush through this here, but I gotta, I want to make it so that everyone can understand, because we have a lot of terms that we are giving people that they may not quite grasp. So the book that would help a lot of people is Awaken the World Within, which we'll get a lot of our references from, and it will open up a lot of understanding for you guys who are watching us. So last week we talked about how we were to control that lower level. Now here we're talking about, let me read the verse for you. I'm gonna read the verse for you out of the King James, and then I'll look at what Professor Hatima has told us, and to understand ourselves here. So it says in Revelation, in the King James Version, and unto the angel of the Church of Sardis write, these things said he that had the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know thy works, that thou hast a name that liveth and art dead. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before God. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. I'm gonna try to hold it at those 3 verses right there, and try to give the audience an understanding of where we're coming from right here. You got to understand, back in the years that in the West, man, anything that referred to God, they believed it no matter what people said. They believed it. So here the logos proclaims himself as divine love. Now we're looking at the Church of Sardis. It speaks of, which represents the Vashudai Chakra. That is the throat region, the throat. So as you think about the throat region, now think about what we're saying. We're talking about the body, us as people, the throat. When you think about the throat is directed to the lower creative centers. It talks about the change of voice. Think about your voice, how it changed at the time of puberty. Your voice changes. And as I looked at this and thought about this here, I read through it all week, and I said, wait a minute, I can remember speaking my first words that were taught to me by my sister, Anala. I can remember hearing what I said and repeated. She was trying to get me to understand how to spell and how to say. I can remember those first words. What this third chapter is relating to is the thyroid area. And if you think about it, as you gain puberty, you know, that little child voice that you had when you were, before you got up there in that age where you start to smell yourself. Now, all of a sudden, that voice changes. It starts to get stronger. Now, watch what Apollonius is trying to, he hid this in this symbolism. So man didn't understand, that wrote the Bible, that interpolated things into this Bible. They didn't understand what Apollonius was showing us. But you see on the screen that the throat section is where the communication, the expression comes out of. You express yourself. Why it's talking about the higher love is because the throat section, until you come to understand that you're suppressing your thoughts and your ideas, they'll never come. When you hold them down, he talked about they'll be watchful and strengthen the things which remain. But at first it said that I know that works. I have a name that lives and are dead. Be watchful and strengthen the things. And it talks about be ready to. It says remain that are ready to die. Your thoughts is what this chapter here, this chakra is referring to, the deadness of your moral feelings. Think about this. Until you can produce, you may have thoughts, but until you can produce the communication of what it is that you are thinking, it lays dormant. It understand, it dies, it's dead until it comes suddenly. It says, it is this higher love is here, said to have the name of being alive, yet to be dead in reality. For the devotional aspirations and pure affections of humanity are pitifully weak. The devotional aspirations, the moral feelings that we have, you understand that we come morally fit. We have morals already. When everybody knows what is right and wrong, but some may not express those moral feelings at until puberty comes in, and now they begin to express what it is that the mind, which we last week we talked about how that in the coronarium should be able to control your lower aspects, your lower chakras, and get them in control. So now, but you are now producing communication which comes out of that area, out of the throat. This is where it comes out of the throat area, and this is where it's talking about it is this deadness of the moral feelings that steals the voice of conscience. Your conscience, you can't, until you are able to express your moral feelings. We all have morals. We understand what we should do and shouldn't do, but most of the time we suppress it. This area here talks about that throat area where things are communicated at, but if they lie dormant, they don't come out. So I'll stop right here for a minute and see if anybody else on the panel can relate to what I'm saying.
Okay. Yes, Archie. I had a I want to make a comment where it says in verse 1, it talks about that these things saith he that hath the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. So what that's telling us right there, because hath, H-A-T-H, is the present tense of have, and have is to own or hold. So we learned about last week that the what the seven stars is, the zodiacs and the chakras. So what it's telling us is that we have these things, and have is a verb. So that's we're it's not something that that you're trying to get. It's something that we already have. Those things are already within us. So that those are not things that we are trying to possess, because we already possess them. And I just want our audience to know that there's we're not trying to get these things. We got them already.
That's what I'm saying. We have the see Apollonius is trying to get us to understand how to bring these things about. It's just like us communicating here at SRC, trying to get people to understand who we are and how to communicate who we are. So he put this in symbolism, and man wrote it the way that man thought it will help the church, and which it has benefited the church. If you go look at a lot of the history of how everything got written and how they replaced Apollonius' name with Jesus. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that I'm telling you, once you find out what has happened, you'll see why he hid these things. Now, Sardis,
I want to
go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to make one more comment. When we talk about the killing or dying to that old self or dying to the lower self, we're not saying that you're not supposed to. Because if you think about this, if you die completely to your lower self, you will not have the instinct to run when something gets behind you, or when you are in danger, or if you don't have the have an instinct, you put your hand on something hot, you won't know to don't do that again. You won't know that that's hot. So you want to be able to use your lower mind, your lower mindset, that lower vibration as well. What we're talking about, and I think Archie just mentioned it a few seconds ago, is maturity. That means that you now can control those things. You don't allow those things to control you. You control those things. I mean, because think about it. We talked about that the sexual appetite is in the lower vibration. So if you didn't have that, we wouldn't have children. We wouldn't be here, because we wouldn't have an appetite for sexual connections. So therefore, it's not about so much about killing those things, but conquering those things.
But yes, Nala. Now you got Sardis was a center of Venus worship. When it talks to Sardis, Sardis was a center of Venus worship, and the reward of those who conquer this would be perfect purity. And you got to understand your emotions now is transmuted into what they call eternal happiness at this point, when you're able to conquer this. Now, love rules, because see, you can't have a good ministry if you don't love. You have to have love, and that comes from this area of, and you communicate it, and folks can feel it. People can tell if you're a loving person or an old grouchy person. One thing I used to hate, and this me myself, I can't say for anyone else, they walk in the church and you got a bunch of mean looking ushers standing at the door. Come on in, get over there, sit down there. You can't do this. They're not displaying. They have not conquered. Good Lord. See, they haven't conquered that area, but they have positions to try to get people to see how to love, but they ain't displaying any love. A lot of churches like that, but that's in my opinion. Now, again, this area here, it's about love. It's about the logos is the Aphrodite, Venus. Aphrodite was the goddess of love, and it was the female aspect. This talks about the female aspect. When we talk about the female aspect, we're talking about creating something. See, we're getting a little deep now, because in order for this to happen, you have to create something here. And in your speech, it has to. Now I know she has written books, Doc has written books, and you have to create something that people, it connects as you write. So people understand where you're going, where you're coming from, and what you're talking about. You know, your beginning, your body, and your end, and you put everything together, and your sentences relate to each other. You're creating something. We're talking about Venus here, the goddess of love. It is the creative word. You see where it says it's going to come upon you. It as we think, as we allow ourselves, we get it, we mature, as Anala said. Now communication starts to come forth. If I could, I related to it, me myself when I used to, when I got at that puberty age and I started to seeing little girls that I like, I had to think about what my communication was going to be to them. I had to create. I would listen to songs and listen to what they were singing that the women like, and I would put that in my little rap that I thought I was rapping somebody, you know, and I would say some of the things that I had heard that songwriters had created themselves to get us to like their music. Now I took that and I created me something that I could get women to like me. So you got to understand, in that section of us, where our throat section, our thyroid section, that is where we begin to develop communication. As I said, the goddess of love is Venus, and it says here it is only in this female aspect that the logos is the creative word. In one sense, the occult potency of sound, and therefore identical with Vac's speech.
Yes, Archie, I want to just speak on the garment. It says, thou has a few names, even Sardis, which have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. So when you think about a garment, I talk all the time about the fact that we are wearing flesh garments. So when he's talking about a garment here, he's talking about us. This information is for us. And when you talk about the color white, white is laid bare, stripped off. It's a passage from one state to another state. This is what he's talking about. I know we were taught in religion about he's going to come back with this white robe and all this stuff on, but it has nothing to do with wearing a white robe. It's talking about us, and it's talking about us moving from one state of consciousness to the other state of consciousness.
I got a question too, Archie, or maybe Dr. Griffo. At the very in verse 5 there, it says, I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. Is there a significance to this part where he's confessing a name to his Father?
First, I'd like to say, as Queen Anala was saying, the white raiment is a state of consciousness. As you go through the process of alchemy, starting with the base being black, and then when you put the fire or the red to the black, and it consumes the base, and then what you're left with is the white ashes of which the phoenix rises out of. So you're absolutely right. It's the last stage of consciousness insofar as alchemy is concerned, and that's when you come out purified and rejuvenated, or as you're asking now, Mark, you would have the Jesus would confess your name to the Father. So in essence, it's just saying that once you have conquered your lower nature and you have shifted to a higher state of consciousness and went through that alchemical process, then you are now a child of God. You are now a Jew. You are now the son of God, etc. So that's all it's saying, is just that transformative process that you go through when you conquer your lower base and you keep rising up those levels of consciousness in the alchemical process. Then you will come out on the other side, and then Jesus will confess your name to the Father, and you will be on the right-hand side like he is. So it's just a process. That's all.
Thank you. That was interesting. Archie.
Yeah, because see, as you think about it, the things that we are relating to, it's still the human being itself, himself, herself. But see, as we speak of the Father, we got to think about that is the higher consciousness of us, where we are reaching up to the brain to, you know, they say we only use 10% of it, our brain, but we're speaking of now your thoughts and your higher thinking recognize that you have conquered, you know, the initiative, the initiate who initiated had to be able to conquer all these lower feelings, and this I always say the animalistic way of living. He had to conquer that, and at this point, he would see, you know, your mind corresponds to what your desires and communications are, and now you're moving on up. It sees you're able to move higher, because you're going to see right here in this next the next verses 7 to 13 that it talks about the holy. And the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things said he that is holy, he that is true, he that had the key of David, he that opened it and no man shut it, and shut it and no man opened it. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Now, listen to what it says. These words says he who is holy, who is true, who was David's key, who has David's key, who opens no one shall shut. It says that the logos presents the aspect of divine thought. As I was just saying, divine thought, the pure and unmixed nature of your intellect, or the unrefracted light of the nous, thought not differentiated into thoughts, but considered as the energizing principle of mind and the complement of the energizing principle of love. The holy and the true are identical with the good and the true of Plato, while the correlated Aphrodite aspect is the beautiful. Now, listen to what he's saying here. It represents the divine thought, the pure and unmixed nature. And I noticed that, you know, in the world of church and preachers, and I noticed that, you know, there are a lot of people that claim that they are the divine. They have this thought, and it says here about how some people say that what it says here. I know thy works. I have set before thee an open door. That the door that was open and no one can shut. No one, and if they shut it, no one can open it. The holy and the true, the divine. This is the logos speaking of the divine thought. Once you conquer that thought, it's there. It is locked. I use this word. It is locked there, and no one can open that door from what you are thinking in your mind. It is the pure thoughts, unmixed nature or of your intellect. Now you're at a point now where you conquered all your lower thoughts and the things that are below, down at the lower level that keep you from thinking properly. Now you have conquered that, and you're thinking, you have divine thought. And it says here, according to the Kabbalistic mysticism, it talks about Adam, David, and the Messiah. And then it begins to talk about the reincarnation of Adam and David. These represent 3 stages in man's life cycle. Adam being the primeval state of childlike innocence, David the adolescence in which good and evil struggle for mastery, and Iosis the stage of maturity. Now we'll just talk about the maturity. David, for all his vileness and evil deeds, had devoured depth of feeling, philosophic breadth of mind. David, and poetic insight that give promise to divine man, and these were his key to the door, giving interest into the higher consciousness, what David represented. Now, in this here, we're talking about Philadelphia represents the Ajna, if I'm pronouncing that right, AJNA chakra. It's a center of the forehead. This is the point of the divergence of the auric light. This relates to whether the solar fire is consumed in masturbation and copulation or is conserved to improve body and brain. Listen to this here. I tell folks a lot of time they don't understand. When it was in Genesis, when it talked about if we ate of that fruit, it wasn't the apple, it wasn't a pear, it wasn't a peach, but it was talking about sexuality. It says here, see, when we consume the solar fire in masturbation or having sex, now we're beginning to destroy ourselves. But if we keep it, now we are maturing, and we are, because see, if you think about the Kundalini, when we talked about the Kundalini, now it says it relates to whether the solar fire is consumed in masturbation and copulation or is conserved to improve body and brain. If you conserve the energy, and we all know that we're talking about the body, and you gotta understand, as grown folks, we know that when you engage in sex, you feel like you're so tired, and all your power, the man's power is like he just dead, and he just dying away. See, because you're using that fire that you need to actually improve your body and your mind. Every time you do that, you're degenerating yourself. And I tell a lot of men, that you're killing yourself when you do that. And a lot of them just say, well, I'm just gonna go kill myself then. Because it's funny, but actually, see what Apollo Nias was trying to get us to understand, how we were really dying, what we were doing. And it talks about here, like I say, Philadelphia represents the center at the forehead, but this is where you come to understand how that to get that Kundalini power to work, you got to keep your strength, and that liquid that runs down through the spine from down to the tailbone on up. It's just like the liquid in the brain. It's in the brain. It's the same stuff. And I'm trying to be as less graphic as possible. I hope grown folks understand. If you take and look at it, it is the same stuff that covers your brain. And every time you discharge it, you're getting weak. It doesn't improve the body and brain. You got to conserve it. Don't you see why the priest, see, now it's a lot of things in here that the priest took out, and they understood that you had to be celibate. They understood that in order to gain that higher way of thinking and get that power, people that prophets and stuff like that, seers, they supposed to not indulge in sexual activity in order to have the power to improve their body and their brain. In order to get that. Now I see Doc shaking his head. He might have something to say on that. Professor, you got. Can you enlighten us a little more on that?
You saying a mouthful. Okay, I'm going to do my best to make this where it's simple to consume, as well as I know we on a time thing. So as you're saying, that cerebral spinal fluid, as it transcends down the spinal column, it goes into the sacral region, and then it comes back up. So as you're saying, when we have a release, then we become lethargic. We want to lay down, because if you're familiar with the chi energy, the chi is generated in the sexual region. And so as you make that as you get sexually aroused, that chi energy grows. And the chi energy is the source of all energy in the body. When you preserve the energy, as you're saying, you know, we were taught not to have to release. So when you release, all of that energy comes out of you and is transferred now to the woman.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't release the way we do during intercourse. So then she takes our energy and she can, you know, we laying there in the bed all laid out. She's up cleaning the house and cooking and running errands and all of that. For the women, they release their chi and their sexual energy when they have a menstrual cycle. That's when they release theirs, because their sexual energy is stored in their ovaries. And then when the womb cleanses itself, their energy comes out, and then they become like us. They become tired, they become lethargic. You follow what I'm saying? So then they release theirs at that time. Ours is released whenever we have sex. So then this is why, as you're saying, you were taught not to release all the time. Now, in the metaphysical world, you should refrain from releasing at least 2.5 to 3 times a month. Like when, like I'm a Pisces. So when the moon is in Pisces, I can have intercourse, but I can't release. This is where you're getting your tithing from, your 10%. Because you're taking the 10% back up to God and giving it back to God when you're remaining during that time. So wherever you know, whatever your sun sign is, when the moon is in that sun sign, you as well should not have that release, because it helps keep you from being recognized by God. In the metaphysical world, you get that spark doing that 3 times of the month. So yes, you're supposed to refrain from releasing that every like the moon moves through each zodiac sign every 2.5 days. So then you can kind of pinpoint exactly when it's going to move into the next zodiac sign based off of where it is. And when the moon is in your sun sign, as men, we should refrain from having and release. And if you recall back in the story about Onan, who had sex with the woman and then he pulled out and he spilled his seed on the ground, and they had such an issue with it, you know what I mean? And they tried to make it seem like, you know, it was about him pulling out, and it was really about the wasting of the seed, as we shouldn't waste our seed on certain days of the month. Okay, and just lastly, I'm gonna try to wrap this up real quick. When you retain the seed, as you're saying, you grow in strength, you grow in energy, you grow in spirituality when you do not release the seed. Men hadn't learned yet to control themselves, where they can actually have intercourse with women without having an ejaculation. They can have an orgasm, but they can't have an ejaculation. What, you know, for anybody looking at this, it's a part of what they call tantric sex, TANTRIC. So where you're withholding the semen, but you can still orgasm and still have the feeling, but you're keeping that energy. As you know, when we were growing up, Pastor Archie, the men that did not have sex, you know, we call them cock strong.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Because they had that energy. And then as soon as though they started to have sex, then they no longer had the energy to be able to do certain feats. So then this was some of the science that we were talking about as kids, and we had no knowledge of the real science behind it. So, and just like a cock, rooster, which crows at dawn, our phallus does what? It erects.
Yeah.
With the coming of the sun and with the crowing of the cock, and this is why that the phallus got that slang term, because there was a correlation between the chicken roosting, I mean, the rooster crowing in the morning and us rising in the early morning. So we follow the sun as well as we have a relationship with the moon. And by us understanding this, then we will know when it's time for us to actually release, when to retain that fluid. So, but very good.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to relate it right to the verse, when it says here in verse 8, for thou hast a little strength and hast kept my word, that's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And not deny
Yes.
my name.
Yeah, not deny thy name. Yeah. All right. You want to continue?
It's interesting, and the audience. I hope they're grasping what we're trying to get them to see. What Apollonius was showing us. He was actually showing us what the person that was selected, that was chosen to be initiated. At this point, he had to be in control of his desires and what he was doing to make himself weak. If he was found to be weak, then he was not qualified to be initiated into the mystery, to the great mystery. The secret society is like a secret society. He would not be allowed to go into that because he did not have the power and did not have the understanding of how he was to preserve himself, to have his strength, because he needed it in order to continue through the initiation. And I tell you, this is really.
I do have a question. I have a question of you, Pastor Archer, or Dr. Griffo. Now, you mentioned that once that a woman's strength comes through her menstrual cycle, and once that is over, that then what happens then? Because if she is not being able, she's not menstruating, and that is where she gets her energy and her strength. That, what are you saying? The women just don't have any more strength?
No, what I was saying is that when the women receive our energy when we're having intercourse, and then we release into that woman, so she receives our energy. You lose your energy when you have your cycle. Now, as you age and you go into menopause and you no longer have a cycle, you follow, and we're still releasing our energy into you, so you're still garnering, you're still gathering, capturing our energy. And we're just
good. Okay.
We're just transferring it to you. That's all.
I got you now.
But
so that's why you have some of the cougars out there, because they still want that energy.
They still right. They have in certain cycles, they have certain societies, they have what they call a white tigress. Okay, so a white tigress, and I got to give it to y'all, but a white tigress is literally a woman who will go around and utilize her mouth to capture that energy from certain men that they feel have a lot of strength. And so she will get all of his energy from different men. This is kind of where they come up with the sacred prostitute, the sacred whore, you know what I mean? Because women knew at that point how to manifest and garnish, I mean, not garnish, but capture a man's essence and his energy. So then in certain societies, the men are called like the green dragon, and the women are called the white tigresses.
And this makes sense now. It makes sense when you think about what Samson and Delilah, who she just had to sleep with him because she wanted all the strength that he had. I mean, she didn't realize and they tried to portray it that it was in his hair, but really it was in his body fluids.
Right. So she understood that, like I say, when men are sexually aroused, all of that energy, it generates, and we become really, really strong. And if any man that is listening to this podcast, just try it. If you have intercourse with your wife, and then you do not ejaculate, and you will realize that you will have so much energy, once you get up and, for the next couple of days, because you've harnessed that energy and you kept it contained inside of your body, and it's just traveling up and down your spinal column. And you will continue to have that until you actually release it. And that's why, again, the monks, the priests, and all of the holy people were taught to refrain from releasing that elixir. Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know, boy, our time is short. I can go and just these last 14, the 14th to the 22nd verses should be pretty quick. I think we got about 10 minutes or
Yeah, I
we can
mean,
make it finish.
are you done with the what city we're on here?
Unless there are other comments on 7 to 13, I'll move on and clear this out, because this is an awesome chapter. I mean, it's telling us about us and how it was really talking about the initiative, how he had to have these things under control. And next it speaks to the society in Laodicea. And it starts at the 14th verse. I do it in the King James. And to the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things said the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou were cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear. Do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcometh, will I grant with me in my throne, even as I also. So as many as I love, I confute and instruct. Now, you see, if you look at it literally, a lot of people, now I done heard some great messages on here. I'm knocking on the door. The Jesus is standing at the door and knocking. And if you open the door, let him come in. Now, we see here that the Logos announce himself as the cosmic substance, which everything is originated from, both subtle and gross, including those forms of matter which modern physicists classify as forces. Laodicea represents the Sahasrara chakra. I hope I said that right. This chakra is the atrophied, unpaired eye of the sign. Hence the allusion to the virgin eye salve. This is the pineal gland. Pineal. Neither cold nor hot, having neither the dispassionate reason nor the devotion of fervor, but lukewarm and nauseated. Now, you see up here on the screen where that is located at, the eye, the unpaired eye. I imagine that it's called the third eye sometime. You can see on the screen right up here. I used to see people with dots up there and different colors. I imagine they represented some things, and I'm not quite sure. I imagine Dr. Griff could enlighten us on that. They put those little. I see women with them a lot. Indian women with those little dots up there on their forehead. But it says you neither cold nor hot, having neither the dispassionate reason nor the devotion of fervor, but lukewarm and nauseating to the higher mind. The lower mind yet prides itself on its supposed wealth or intellectual attainment, yet without the gold or solarical refinement and the white garments of purity, these attainments are meager and unloving. The reward of the conqueror is to share the throne of God, that is to become one with his own solarical self. Look at what it's saying, and we might have hit some of it. The reward of the conqueror that conquers lower ways of thinking, it says, neither cold or hot is having neither the dispassionate reason nor the devotion of fervor, but lukewarm and nauseating to the higher mind. You're between I think I spoke of reasoning the last time. You don't have the dispassionate reason nor the devotion of fervor. You know, you're in between. You're getting it, but you're not getting it, or you're not displaying it or communicating it in this area, because this is the throat area. This is where the communication comes out at. You don't have that dispassionate reason. You can't really understand your devotion of fervor is what I say when it was hidden down there. It's hidden, or it's not. You know how you get a credit card and you got to call in and make sure that thing is working right. It's there, but you haven't. I think the words right on the tip of my tongue, but you haven't initiated it. You haven't
Activated.
there it is. There it is. Now you have not activated. It's dormant. That's what it is, dormant. So you don't have that there, but it says lukewarm and nauseating to the higher mind. The lower mind yet prides itself. Your lower mind is priding itself as being wealthy of intellectual attainments, yet without the goal of solarical refinement. And I think Doc spoke on gold, that gold liquid that actually comes up to the brain. He making hit a little bit on that, because it talks about that you think that you have it, but it's not the real thing. You know how the fake rings and fake watches, you think you got the real thing, but you got a knockoff. But from a distance, it looks like the real thing. But within you,
I want to
go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to on 14. I know that we're not going to finish this up, because there's no way we can rush this with all the symbolisms. I know we read through it, but I think that we have a lot of information here to unpack, especially when it talks about in verse 14. It says that the beginnings of the creation of God, and you touched on that, Pastor Archie, when you said, you know, you think you're there, but you're not there yet. And it's clear here, because it says the beginnings of the creation. So we know that we have God within us, but we have to work to actually have to, like you said, to activate that, because of activate the God within us. We talked before with SRC, and we said, you know, God is in everyone. You're not trying to get God. God is there, but you have to activate that. You have to use your higher consciousness, so that God now is awake within you. And so when it talks here about the beginning, it's the beginning of what you're creating within yourself, or who you are. You're beginning to really open yourself up, beginning to really awaken, and know that you are the God, a God. And that's what 14 is talking about. I wanted to make sure that we didn't miss that, Archie.
So maybe maybe we want to break off here and open up next show with the and finish our summation up on this last church, which is important, because it's the highest level of consciousness, the highest chakra, if you will. It's the gold. So we probably want to spend a little more time on that. Everybody come prepared for that, okay?
Sounds good to me. Sounds good.
All right. Anala, you got anything else?
Well, as you mentioned, we're going to come back. We're going to continue to finish unpacking verse 3, because there's so much information in there. We don't want to rush through this and just try to get something out to you. And so we're going to finish that next week, and hopefully move into chapter 4 on next week. And of course, don't forget about the SRC challenge. We are moving through Revelation, and I'm hoping that you're taking notes and going to your dictionary and defining words, because remember, this SRC challenge will pay you $50 for sending in your summary.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? Archie, you want to quickly sum up, or you good?
I'm enjoying this, and again, as I said in the beginning, I hope the audience will vision themselves within what we are talking about, and go along with us. Check some of the stuff out, and again, that book, Awaken the World Within, will give you a lot of the information that we're trying to get to you, to understand you and what it was that the church fathers had hid from the masses. So we're trying to enlighten you, baby. That's it. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. All right. So we're going to close this fourth episode of the Revelation series. And all of us here with SRC want to thank the audience for sitting in on today's presentation. Our next episode in this series of Revelation will be a week from today. We're moving into February, the 7th of February at 10 o'clock Eastern. So please join us. We really appreciate everyone's patronage and encourage you to email us your questions or comments at shiftingreligiousconcepts@gmail.com. If anyone's interested in advertising with SRC, please contact us at that same email. And don't forget that this presentation will be available on YouTube within the next few days. And even if you attend today's program, please go to the Shifting Religious Concepts channel and give us a thumbs up and subscribe. This is one of the few ways we get public attention, and it really helps us promote the SRC mission. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, go to Shifting Religious Concepts /registration and join us. That does it for us. We really appreciate our audience today. We wish you all peace, health, wisdom, and love, of course.